Curly Foo and Peanut Productions present Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Crooked Man, based upon the short story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. We start our tale at the residence of Dr. John Watson and his current wife, Mary.
What time is it now, Mary?
Just a little after 8 o'clock. You're quite capable of looking at the clock yourself, Watson.
I do wish you'd call me John, but we've been married for several months now.
Sorry, John. I shall try to remember. You're very excited, aren't you?
How can you tell?
Because you've been jiggling around like a fidgety child all evening and constantly asking what the time is. It's most distracting.
Oh, Mary, my sweet, I do apologise.
I swear to God that if we weren't living in such happily married bliss, then I might have snapped your neck like that of a plump chicken by now.
It's just I'm really looking forward to seeing Holmes, and your suggestion of inviting him round for a sleepover was a brilliant idea.
Well, I know how much you've missed him these past few weeks. I thought it would do you good to have a boys' night together.
Did you remember the Haribo?
Of course I did, Watson.
John.
Sorry, John.
Haribo's are Holmes's favourite.
I know they are, darling. You've mentioned it once, or twice, or more. There's also a few cheese strings and Coca-Cola in the refrigerator.
Thanks, Mary.
I assume you'll both be wearing your onesies, so yours is all nice and clean and laid out for you.
You're the best.
Don't let Sherlock hear you say that.
He's here. Holmes is here.
Calm down, Watson.
John.
Yes, I meant John. Do try not to break anything tonight. Most of this furniture is brand new.
Oh, stop fussing. What's the worst that could happen?
Another fire?
Ah, so you've heard about that then?
Yes, dear. Mrs. Hudson has been most informative regarding your previous exploits with Mr. Holmes.
I'll bet she has.
She's a sweet lady.
So, why do I feel the need to reach for my trusty revolver whenever I see her?
Leave her alone. Right, I'm off to bed. Don't stay up too late, and remember you have rounds in the morning.
Blah, blah, blah.
Good night, Watson. Mwah.
Yeah, see ya. I'm coming, Holmes.
Maybe providing them with full fat cola was not such a good idea.
Holmes! Watson! Holmes! Watson! Holmes! Okay, that's enough of that. Come here, give me a hug. I don't really... I've missed you, Holmes. I've missed you too, old chap. I haven't seen you for ages. Watson, you need to let go of me. You smell nice. Seriously, Watson, let go. I can't breathe. Everything's going dark. Holmes, stop messing about on the floor and come on in. You really need to moderate your hugs, old chap. Well, Mary never complains. That's because she's bigger than me. I see your medical rounds are keeping you local at present. Oh, yes indeed. It may seem foolish in your eyes, but I really don't know how you deduced it. Yes, well, I have the advantage of knowing your habits, Watson. If your round is close to home, then you walk. When it is further afield, then you drive. When I entered the house, I perceived a faint odour of dog poo. Looking down at your shoes in the hallway, I noticed crap bumpered around one heel. I thus concluded that you had been walking the nearby streets, where the residents completely ignore the anti-fouling law. What? Oh no! If Mary sees that, she'll go mental. Carry on through to the lounge. I'll just sort this out before she finds it. All sorted? Yep, I just banged it off in the sink and then rinsed it under the tap. Just like old times, eh, Watson? Here you go, mate. Haribo and Coca-Cola. Do you want Star Mix or Tangfastic? Star Mix, please. No chance of a Red Bull, then? I won't have that evil brew in the house, and I thought you'd kick the habit. I'm getting there, Watson. I'm getting there. Is the Coke full fat? Yeah, of course. Pass one over then. Do you want a glass to drink it from? Do I look like a no-knob? I'm just asking. Mary makes me use a glass. You've changed, man. Leave it out, Holmes. So, are you working on any interesting cases at present? I thought you'd never ask. I have in place several threads of one of the strangest cases which ever perplexed a man's brain. You always say stuff like that. Like what? Well, like, it was the most extraordinary conundrum to test the most highly developed intellect, or the circumstances presented the greatest challenge to reasoning ever experienced in the history of the whole of mankind. Then we find out it's just a dead bloke who's had something nicked. I don't do that. Yes, you do. Your middle name ought to be Hyperbole. But this case is a really good one. Honest. OK, tell me all about it. But make sure you stick to the facts. Oi, cheeky. Missed you, Holmes. I missed you too, Watson. You're not too sleepy then? Are you kidding? I'm so wired up on Haribo and cola, I feel I want to go around ripping radiators off the wall. Oh dear, I don't think Mary would like that. I'll just say you did it. Oh. Come on, Holmes. Astound me. Perplex me. Take me to your special place. All right then. Have you read anything in the press regarding the murder of Colonel James Barclay? Not a sausage. It's hardly surprising that you haven't heard about it. The case hasn't excited very much attention. Oh no, it's not that. Mary doesn't like me reading the newspapers. Really? Why not? Well, apparently, the Telegraph makes me grumpy, and the Daily Star gets me overexcited. All the other papers just confuse me. So you just keep up on current affairs from television news broadcasts then? No, I can't watch them. What, Mary doesn't allow it? Well, no, it's simply that I find male newscasters terrifying, and the female ones overstimulating. They're all so authoritative, I get intimidated. Don't make me think about it now, or I'll never get to sleep tonight. You're weird. Go on with your story. Well, Barclay was a commander in the Royal Fusiliers. Oh, the old 117th down in Aldershot. The very same. He lived out of barracks and resided in a villa called Lakeene, about a mile north of the camp. Is it really that horrible? Is what really that horrible? The villa. I'm not sure I follow you, Watson. Well, the place must be ghastly if this Barclay fella felt the need to call it after a toilet. I said Lakeene, Watson, not latrine. Oh, right, sorry. Carry on. Barclay was married to Nancy Devoy, the daughter of a former colour sergeant in the same corps. Was she a looker? I find it hard to provide an objective opinion when assessing the attractiveness of a woman. Would I fancy her? Well, given she had a pulse, I would say yes. Cool, she sounds great. Don't get too excited, Watson. Right now she's being held in custody, accused of the murder of her husband. Ooh, murderesses are sexy. Sexy murderesses. Watson, have you and Mary been role-playing again? Maybe, once or twice. Just be careful. We have a safety word. I don't want to know. It's... I say, la 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 la. Finished? Yep. What happened to James Barclay then? He was found with his skull cracked open like a cheap walnut. Right, that was a mandatory murder, so what was nicked? The stolen item? Ah, see, told you. Something always has to have been taken. It's so formulaic. It doesn't always happen like that. Well, more often than not it does with you. But there can be no question that the singular disappearance of the missing item is the most distinctive and suggestive point in the case. Yes, it usually is, and I'm going to bet you won't tell me what it was until you have laid all the facts before me. You got it, Watson. It's considerably more entertaining that way. Yeah, entertaining for you, you mean? Naturally. Let's start by taking you back to my visit to the scene of the crime. I had been asked to go to Aldershot to supplement the efforts of the police. Upon my arrival, I immediately interviewed a member of the house staff who had been there at the time of the incident. So, Mrs. Stewart, you are the housekeeper here at Lakeene.
And you're the detective Sherlock Holmes.
So you know of me. Would you like my autograph?
Nah, I've got half a dozen already.
What? How come?
My mother's sister's daughter gets them for me.
Your cousin wouldn't happen to be Mrs. Hudson from London, would she?
How did you know?
Firstly, because you bear a terrifying resemblance to her. And secondly, because she keeps asking me to provide autographed photos for sick kids in hospital.
Yeah, sick kiddies. Well, that's right.
You sell them on eBay, don't you?
Might do.
I need to talk to you about Mr. and Mrs. Barclay.
I never done it.
Righty-ho, I'll just tick you off the suspects list then.
Ooh, am I a suspect?
No. Tell me about James Barclay. What was he like?
Oh, he was a lovely gentleman.
Was he?
Yes, he was dashing and handsome and jovial.
I see. Anything else about his character?
Not really. Oh yeah, he was a vindictive, grumpy old git.
Okay, bit of a contrast there.
1 minute he was all, "Ooh, Mrs. Stewart, you do look lovely today."
Really?
The next minute he would say, "Oi, Mrs. Stewart, what's that awful smell?" and look at me like I'd trodden in something nasty.
Why would he do that?
Well, usually because I'd trodden in something nasty.
Tell me about Mrs. Barclay.
She was sweetness itself. She was beautiful and charming. If I was in a room and she entered, no one else could smell me any more.
She used a lot of perfume then?
Gallons of the bloody stuff. Especially when she went out night clubbing with that mate of hers, Mrs. Morrison.
Did she go clubbing a lot?
All the time. In fact, she'd been out on the razz with Miss Morrison the night her husband was killed.
Tell me what you know of that evening.
Well, she came stomping in the house, slamming doors and shouting, "Oi, Santa, where are you? Come here, you conniving little turd."
Why was she shouting Santa?
I reckon it was her pet name for Mr. Barclay when they were in the throes of passion.
Seriously?
Yeah, you know, like Big Boy, or Donkey Kong, or Jehovah.
Okay, I get the idea. Had you ever heard her call him that before?
No.
Most interesting. What happened next?
She found Mr. Barclay in the dining room where he had gone to eat a packet of Doritos.
He went to the dining room to eat Doritos.
They were very posh people.
What did Mrs. Barclay do when she found him in there?
She slammed the door to the room and started shouting.
I don't suppose you could hear what was being said, could you?
Of course I could. I was listening right outside the door. It was better than an episode of EastEnders.
Oh, do tell.
Oh, she was going on at him something rotten. There was loads of swearing. "You cowardly little twat," I heard her shout. Actually, she used the word twat a lot.
Sounds like my kind of woman.
From what I could make out, Mrs. Barclay had bumped into an ex-boyfriend while she was out that evening.
How did Mr. Barclay react?
He couldn't get a word in edgeways. She was getting louder and louder. In the end she yelled, "What can be done now?" Then she swore. Then she said, "Give me back my life." Then she swore some more. Then I heard a bloke shout, a big crash, and Mrs. Barclay screamed. It was brilliant.
It sounds jolly exciting.
It was. Anyway, while it was all kicking off, Nobby the chauffeur had arrived and was listening in as well.
What was Nobby's opinion of the altercation?
The what?
The stuff they were shouting about.
Oh, he really enjoyed it too. We hung around for a while after the screaming and crashing, just in case there was a bit more, but it all stayed quiet. After a while, I asked Nobby if he fancied a cup of tea. He suggested we ask the Barclays if they wanted one too.
What did you do?
I knocked on the door and said, "Who wants a nice cup of tea then?" There was no answer, and when I tried to open the door, it was locked. That's when I started to get a bit worried.
What happened next?
Nobby kicked the door in. He said it made him feel just like Jason Bourne.
And once inside the room, what did you see?
Oh, it was horrible, it was. Horrible.
Okay, that's wonderfully dramatic, but not very useful. Could you be a little more descriptive?
Mrs. Barclay was lying unconscious on the floor. I was hoping she'd lapsed into a coma, but she'd just passed out.
How very disappointing for you.
Yeah, it was a real letdown.
And what of Mr. Barclay?
He was stone dead, with his head bashed open, and there was blood all over.
I bet that cheered you up no end after the absence of a good coma.
It did that.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Stewart. I believe any further dialogue with you would be entirely pointless. You may go now.
Do you want a cup of tea?
No, I'm fine with my can of Red Bull, thank you. The dining room is over that way, is it?
Yeah. There's an Inspector Lestrade in there already. I can't understand a bloody word he says.
Lestrade is here. Excellent.
Well, Holmes.
Inspector Lestrade, hello to you, my dear chap. I didn't expect to see you taking part in this episode.
Well, it's overtime.
I quite understand. We all need the money, eh?
You loaded.
Yes, everyone except me needs the money. So, my friend, what do we have here? Where's the murder weapon?
Oh, we put it in a club.
Do you mean this carved wood and bone handle affair lying on the floor? Is that the murder weapon? I can see why you would think that, but it's rather odd there is no blood, hair or anything else stuck to it that would indicate it had been used to strike a person.
Well, I think it's been a key.
What about the key?
Well, this is missing.
So, the key that was used to lock the room door from the inside is nowhere to be found.
Well, look everywhere.
I'm sure your search has been typically thorough.
What's some of that under the curtains?
What have you found on the curtain? Let me see. Why, there are indeed little sticky handprints going up the material.
Oh, you just done that. It's unhygienic.
Of course I tasted the residue. It's the fastest way to identify it.
What can you have with a lab report?
That takes too long. I can tell you now that it's maple syrup.
What maple syrup?
Well, maple syrup is popular amongst Canadians. But more to the point, look at the handprints themselves.
Well, a horrible child.
Yes, all children are horrible, but I do not believe that these were made by anything human.
But it's unnatural.
Look at where the handprints lead. They go up to that cupboard.
Well, I can't figure out what's in it.
The cupboard only contains a waffle iron, a packet of waffle mix, and some Doritos. Most interesting.
I bet you got a theory.
Well, naturally I have a hypothesis, and predictably I need to test out some leads before I can enlighten you further.
Oh, blood, what an arse.
Yes, I know it's a pain, but you'll just have to wait. I shall now return to London. Rest assured I'll contact you again, toot sweet.
Well, that was a musical instrument.
No, it's French, you Philistine. Anyway, mustache, I'm supposed to be going to a sleepover at Watson's place tonight.
Oh, well, give him all my best.
I'll tell him you were asking after him. Toodaloo, Lestrade.
Better than that.
So there you have it, Watson. The case so far. The thing that was missing was a key. Yes. And you couldn't have just told me that earlier? You know my methods, Watson. Yeah, milk a story for all it's worth. Seriously, Holmes, you're worse than Peter Jackson. But my observations must make you realise that this case is more extraordinary than it first appears. If you say so. Now I'm surprised you didn't interview Mrs. Barclay's nightclubbing friend. You mean Miss Morrison? That's her. Way ahead of you, Watson. I did that this morning. Let me guess. It was her information which allowed you to decipher the case. Smart ass. Thought so. OK, go ahead. Amaze me. Miss Morrison told me that she and Miss Barclay were on their way to Minger's nightclub in Aldershot when they were accosted by a peculiar-looking gentleman selling the big issue out on the street. Why do those blokes do that when you're on a night out? I mean, if you're out on the rash, who wants to carry around a copy of the big issue with them all evening? Quite so. In fact, Miss Morrison was pointing out to the chap the obvious lack of storage capacity afforded by a crop top and microskirt combination when she noticed the expression on Mrs. Barclay's face. What? Was the big issue bloke smelly? Yeah, perhaps. But apparently the look on Miss Barclay's face was one of incredulous recognition. Well, what would that be like then? I'm not sure. I've tried producing it in a mirror myself. Best I could come up with was this. That's not really what I'd call an incredulous recognition face, Holmes. It's just more of a pissed on my own foot sort of face. Well, either way, Big Issue chap also noticed Miss Barclay and blurted out her first name, Nancy. So he knew her. How did she react? According to Morrison, Miss Barclay exclaimed, "Bugger me, Henry, I thought you were dead." Then she told Morrison to clear off as she wanted to talk to the chap in private. So Morrison moved out of earshot. After a while, Miss Barclay gave the chap a big hug and a sloppy kiss. then stormed past Morrison muttering something along the lines of castrating James with a rusty knife. When Morrison looked back in the other direction, the man had disappeared.
So, Miss Barkley went home to confront her husband?
Yes.
What did Miss Morrison do?
Oh, she carried on to Minger's nightclub on her own. She ended up having a wonderful evening and eventually got off with an industrial erection specialist from Luton.
Oh, classy lady. But tell me, Holmes, you said she described this Henry as peculiar. Did she elaborate on that?
Oh, yes, indeed. She described him as obviously being handsome once and probably of the same age as Mrs. Barkley, but it was hard to tell from his weathered and grimy face. However, his most striking aspect was that his body was crooked and twisted, as if he had undergone some sort of extreme hardship.
Are you nearly done, Holmes? I'm about ready for bed and there's no Haribo left.
There is one more point of interest in Miss Morrison's account. She stated that Henry had a small, strange animal with him.
Well, what sort of animal?
One that was simian in nature.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard to track this Henry down given his description and his odd pet.
Way ahead of you, Watson. His full name is Henry Woods, and I discovered where he resides just before I came round to your house.
Are you going to pay him a visit?
Yes, indeed. It's my intention to do that first thing tomorrow. Would you care to accompany me?
You bet I would.
What about your doctor's round?
Oh, sod that. A deformed bloke with a monkey? I'm not going to miss that for anything.
Splendid. Well, as you said, we're all out of Haribo, so let us retire to our beds.
Yeah, let's. Oh, by the way, if you go to the loo in the night, don't flush. The sister makes one hell of a racket and it'll wake Mary up.
No problem, I'll just pee in the sink as usual.
Why didn't I think of that?
Good night, old chap.
Night-night, Holmes.
This is the right street, Watson.
It's a bit run down. Look out, Holmes! He might have a knife! You won't get my iPhone, you little hoodlum.
Watson, your ever unreliable intuition has failed you once again. Allow me to introduce you to Simpson, one of my Baker Street irregulars.
He's one of yours?
Indeed he is. Congratulations, old chap. You've just punched out an 11-year-old.
Yeah, still got it.
Here, Simpson. Let me help you up.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Where are my glasses? I can't see anything without my glasses.
Here you go, Four Eyes.
Keep away from me, you psycho.
Though you must forgive Watson. His impression of Britain's youth has been irreparably influenced by Attack the Block. Now, Simpson, do you have anything to report?
Wood is still in there, Governor. He's not left the place all morning.
Splendid. Thank you, Simpson. Why don't you run along and get yourself cleaned up? Your nose is bleeding all down your Minecraft t-shirt.
Thanks, Mr. Holmes.
Bye, Simpson.
Don't touch me.
What a funny little chap.
Come along, Watson. Let's go and meet Mr. Henry Wood.
And his monkey.
This is the place.
Bugger off! Is he any relation to Mrs. Hudson?
Oh, not that I know of.
What do you want?
Caw, he really is deformed, isn't he?
Watson, curtail your fascination with the freakishly bizarre. Mr. Wood, please excuse my socially unsuitable friend. I am Sherlock Holmes.
What do you want?
You may have heard of me.
What do you want?
Would you like my autograph?
Nah, what do you want?
I'd like to talk to you about James Barkley.
I want to see your monkey.
Don't know any James Barkley.
So you don't know his wife Nancy either then? She's currently in police custody, charged with the murder of her husband.
What? My Nancy? Nah.
Ah, so you do know them after all. Thought you might.
What if I do?
Well, unless you can provide evidence to the contrary, Nancy Barkley is going down for the crime.
I can't let that happen to her. You better come inside.
Brilliant. Where's the monkey?
Sit down if you want.
Where?
Choose a packing crate, plonk your arse on it.
Oh, very rustic.
Where's the monkey?
You mean the Canadian brown monkey, Watson?
How do you know all this stuff?
I'm the premier detective in Britain.
Possibly in the world, Holmes.
Yes, quite probably, Watson. So, finding out about you, Mr. Wood, Was child's play for me.
Don't mention children.
So you have an aversion to kids then?
They're horrible, nasty, spiteful little demons.
I would tend to agree.
Oh, monkeys, on the other hand, are brilliant. Where's yours, Mr. Wood?
Teddy's around here somewhere.
He's called Teddy then, is he? That's a great name for a monkey. Can I see him?
All in good time, Watson. Firstly, I want Mr. Wood to tell me about his relationship with the Barclays.
James Markley and me have been friends for years. At least, he acted like he was my friend.
What happened then?
We were at school together. When we finished, James went into the army and I got into the catering business. It was thanks to James that I met Nancy.
The daughter of James's colour sergeant.
Who's telling this story?
Yeah, shut up, Holmes. The quicker he gets on with it, the sooner I get to see the monkey.
As I was saying, James and I were mates and we both fancied Nancy. She chose me over him, though. That rankled him more than I ever realised at the time.
Why did she choose you over him? I mean, no offence, mate, but you're a bit gross.
I haven't always been like this. Back then I could pull birds no problem, but the only one I wanted was Nancy.
What did James do?
He cleared off to Afghanistan with his unit.
The Royal Fusiliers?
Yeah, he was only out there for a short time, then he got in touch with a business suggestion.
Sounds intriguing. What was he proposing?
Well, it turned out that our brave lads craved fast food. They missed their McDonald's, Pizza Hut and KFC.
And you were in the catering trade?
Precisely. James thought a fried chicken outlet could do well in Kabul, so I went over there.
And was it a success?
Too right it was. Massively popular with our boys, the Americans, and especially the locals.
Would I be right in thinking that James had an ulterior motive in getting you out to Afghanistan?
He certainly did. I'd been there less than a year and the business was going through the roof.
Did you have a secret recipe?
Not really, but James told the Taliban that I did. One night I was out buying in supplies when they kidnapped me.
You mean you were grabbed by the Taliban so that they could get hold of your recipe for fried chicken?
Yep, you got it.
Where did they take you?
Bloody miles away. I was with them for ages.
Was it awful?
Not at all. I made them fried chicken and they taught me a new trade.
A new trade? What exactly?
One of the older blokes learnt me a few conjuring tricks. Another one got me into juggling. A younger bloke was a genius at balloon animals. He showed me how to do it. So chucking a few games and hey presto, I'm Magic Harry, the kids' birthday party favourite.
So, let me get this straight. You became a Taliban children's entertainer.
That's right. Their kids are little sods, just like anyone else's. They need someone to keep them occupied.
What sort of games do you play with Taliban kiddies?
Stuff like pin the tail on the goat.
Well, that sounds nice.
They use real goats.
Oh.
How long were you out there?
9 years, 8 of them performing to the kids. I came back over here and I tried to make a go of it in Blighty, but the kids over here are even worse. I jacked it in the end.
So you escaped from the Taliban then?
What do you mean escaped?
I mean you got away from their imprisonment and brutal treatment of you.
What brutal treatment?
Well, your bent and twisted body is obvious evidence of the terrible abuse they made you suffer.
Yeah, you're a right mess.
It wasn't the Taliban that did this to me. They were lovely. A nice bunch of blokes once you got to know them.
Really?
Yeah, really. The broken man that you see in front of you is the result of 10 years of working with kids. They're bloody evil little monsters.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Can we see the monkey now?
I blame James Barkley for me ending up like this. If it wasn't for his betrayal, I could be running my own little restaurant chain by now. He only did it so that he could have Nancy.
Why did you never contact her?
There was never any time. I was very much in demand, you know. The longer I left it, the harder it became to call her. In the end, she thought I died out there.
Hence her exclamation when she saw you outside Minger's on the night of James Barkley's death.
I never thought I'd see her again, let alone outside that cattle market. Bloody shock of it nearly did for me, it did.
You followed her back to her home, didn't you?
Couldn't stop myself.
You were outside the room window looking in when she confronted James, weren't you?
Yeah, she was really laying into the obnoxious little tit. I felt like having a go at him myself, so I climbed in through the window.
I bet Barkley crapped his pants, didn't he?
He did that. He was so astonished he fell over backwards and smacked his head open on the mantelpiece.
And that's why Mrs. Barkley screamed.
Nah, she screamed because Teddy had followed me in and was climbing up her new curtains. It was all a bit much for her, and next thing I knew she passed out on the floor.
What happened to the door key?
Teddy had nabbed it. I grabbed Teddy and scarpered. Only found later on that he had picked up the key.
So you didn't actually kill James Berkeley then?
Nah, more's the pity.
Can we see the monkey now? Oh, for God's sake, show him the damn monkey. He's been banging on about it all morning.
Teddy! Come here, mate! Ta-da! This is Teddy.
As I thought, he is indeed a Canadian brown monkey. He's brilliant. They're incredibly rare, Watson, and surprisingly intelligent.
How did you know he was a Canadian brown?
I surmised it from the small maple syrup handprints on the Barclays curtains, allied to the fact that whatever had made them was clearly trying to get at Waffles.
Oh, yuck, his fur's all sticky.
Well, don't keep touching him then.
He always gets himself covered in syrup. He can't get enough of the stuff.
It's their staple diet in the wild. Oh, hang on, that's my phone. Let me get this. Holmes here. Oh, hello, Lestrade. Yes, still on a bit of a sugar rush this morning, but otherwise fine. Oh, Watson is indeed here. He's currently stroking a sticky monkey. No, that is not a euphemism. Why did you call, Lestrade? Oh, really? Well, that's good news for Mrs. Barclay. It does indeed sound as if my services are no longer required in the case. No, honestly, the term stroking the monkey does not have any hidden meaning that I know of. Well, Google it all you want. I must go now. Goodbye, Lestrade, and thanks for letting me know.
What did Inspector Lestrade have to say then?
He thinks you'll make yourself go blind, Watson.
Or anything else?
Yes. Forensics have confirmed that James Barclay died from banging his head on the dining room mantelpiece, exactly as Wood said.
So, Nancy Barclay's off the hook then?
Oh, totally in the clear. James Barclay's death is being put down as a tragic accident.
Thank God for that.
Perhaps you should make proper contact with her now, Mr. Wood.
Nah.
Can we get a monkey, Holmes?
If you were still living with me in Baker Street, I would say yes. But now that you live with your wife...
Oh yeah, I've forgotten that.
Look at the state of you, Watson. You're absolutely covered in sticky bits of fur.
What? Oh, blimey. If Mary sees that, she'll go ballistic.
Let's drop off at the Diogenes Club on the way home and get you cleaned up.
Oh, that'd be great. Do you think your brother Mycroft will be there?
Oh, most certainly. He hardly ever leaves the place.
Does he like monkeys?
It wouldn't surprise me if he did.
I can't wait to tell him about this one then.
Come on, we must leave Mr. Wood in peace. Goodbye, Henry, and good luck with your life. We'll see ourselves out.
Bye, Magic Harry.
Nah.
Do you think Mr. Wood will be alright, Holmes?
I dunno.
I liked his monkey.
I know you did, my friend.
There's still one thing I don't understand about this case, Holmes.
What's that, Watson?
Well, if the husband's name was James and her ex was called Henry, then why was Nancy Barclay shouting out Santa?
That one word, my dear Watson, should have told me the whole story had I been an ideal reasoner. It was evidently used as a term of reproach.
But Santa's brilliant. How could he be used to have a go at someone?
Well, because Nancy felt betrayed, of course.
No, still not getting it.
Oh, come on, Watson, it's obvious. Santa betrays millions of children every year.
How does he do that?
By not actually existing.
You cannot be serious. Why, such a thing would be extraordinary, my dear Holmes.
You have been listening to Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Crooked Man, starring Stanislaw as Sherlock Holmes, Simon Stein as Dr. John Watson, Anastasia as Mrs. Porter, Robin Turner as Mary Watson, and Elliot Clark as Simpson. All other parts were played by Fred Turner and Dennis Gavin. Adapted and produced by Fred Turner and Dennis Gavin. Music from Elgar, Schubert, Helst, Tchaikovsky and Wagner. Sherlock Holmes will return in the adventure of the Sussex Vampire. In the meantime, visit our website at www.sherlockholmes.com the curly foo and peanut, that's all one word, .co.uk. No one should take themselves too seriously, especially Sherlock Holmes.
Hi folks, Stanislaw here. For any children listening, I just wanted to say, don't you go taking any notice of silly old Sherlock Holmes, you little scamps. Of course Santa exists. Holmes was lying. He only says these things because, well, he just can't stand kids.